Hello everyone, I'm Kristy, Arnett, and welcome to Risk Every Day, part of the WTF Am I Doing With My Life podcast, where we get together and share our stories and wisdom and also inspire one another to take risks on our lives towards what we want, because we all know that that's where the juice comes. That's where we are outside of our comfort zones and where we can create results that we've never had because we're taking risks and being someone we've never been. And speaking of doing something and being something we've never been, I am right now doing something for the first time, which is I am recording this Facebook Live and recording this podcast all together, and I'm recording it inside my WTF Am I Doing With My Life podcast group right now. So this is really cool. I've just launched my Facebook group, and what I really want to create is a community of all of you guys, like a way for us to really encourage and be with one another. I'm sort of feeling out how this group kind of takes shape, and I'm hoping we can do that together. But one thing I do know that I'm going to do is that I'm going to record my Risk Everyday episodes live inside the group so that we can talk, communicate while I'm recording. And I just think it will be a fun idea. And so with that, I'm going to get started here on today's episode. And by the way, if you want to join the group though, actually go to facebook.com/groups/WTF Am I Doing With My Life. So feel free to join and invite your friends. And of course, like what we're doing here with these Risk Every Days is not only are we talking about ways in which we can take steps forward, but also what I'm asking you to do is when you take risks, you share and you tag me and hashtag Risk Every Day, because what we know for sure is as we move forward and create these milestones in our life, we also light the way for others and show others what's possible. And that goes kind of along with the theme of what I wanted to talk about today, which is what I am kind of like referring to now is what it occurs to me in my mind is called our inner search engine. And it's been on my mind lately because recently the podcast just cracked the top 200 of the category it's in, which is in self-help in iTunes, which by the way, and just like another note, I'm not crazy about the term self-help. I actually don't like the term at all because it implies that who we are as we are in this moment is something other than complete and whole, and I don't believe that is true. And like this help connotation is just negative and doesn't feel good to me. However, it is the most accurate tag that I have found on iTunes for this podcast where people can find us, but I much prefer like personal development, growth, leadership, something like that. And as I do these Facebook Lives inside the group and recording the Risk Every Days, what I want listeners to know is sometimes I'm going to be talking to people who are listening, and what I want viewers to know who are watching on Facebook Live to know is that sometimes I will describe things that I'm doing or that you see so that the listeners can understand. And right now, we have our first comment in a Risk Every Day. Nancy Jutton. Actually, we just did a podcast together, which will be an interview published in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for congratulating on the top 200 podcast. You guys are in for a treat. She's an amazing human, and we talk about really owning our story, what it takes, and she talks about how she helps people share their own story. So look forward to that in the coming weeks. But back to the inner search engine. Okay, tell me if you're like me, which is that when you find something wrong, like you're sick, your stomach hurts, maybe you got some weird pain in your hip, and your mind automatically goes to, oh my gosh, I have a tumor, or something is totally wrong with me. I have cancer or something. And then you go to Google and you type in hip pain cancer, right? And then of course you're going to come up with all of these search answers that corroborate what you fear, because that is what you searched, right? Well, our brains sort of work the same way. Like, if you typed into Google hip pain possibilities, it would come up with lots of different possibilities. But that's not our natural way of thinking about things, and we don't even realize it. Like, another example is, have you ever rode in a car with somebody and it was like a very unique car? Like, oh my gosh, I've never been in a Tesla Roadster before. This thing is amazing. Like, I've never seen what these can do or how awesome they are. And you ride it and you think it's amazing. And like, you never really noticed them before. But then all of a sudden, after that ride, you see Tesla Roadsters everywhere. You're like, holy crap, I had no idea so many people own this type of car. And there's lots of science behind why our brains do this. I mean, if you think about all of the bits of information that come in to our brains at any given moment, that there's sights, there's smells, there's sensations, there's just so much information coming into our brains that in order for us to live and be productive humans, our brains have to sort through things. It has to prioritize. It has to focus on only the things that we can actually handle. And when our search engines are programmed a certain way, we tend to focus on different things. And so when I saw that the podcast made top 200 in our category, I was like, whoa, that's so exciting. This is so cool. Like, this is measurable now, and we're making progress, and the podcast is growing every month. And I was thinking, oh man, how far could we go? Could we crack the top 100? Could we do top 10? Could it be the number one podcast in its category? Could it crack the top 200 in all podcasts? And as soon as I started thinking about something that I maybe have feared might not be possible, or is it possible for me to create something that cool and amazing? Because it's never been done before by me, right? I have never had a podcast in the top 100 or 200 of all time. So my brain, all of a sudden, it came up with all of these reasons why I couldn't. And it was interesting because I've been doing a lot of meditation, which I'm a big proponent of. You guys know that here on the podcast, and how it allows us some space between us and our thoughts, which this is going to give you so much insight if you begin to have a very rigorous and consistent meditation practice. You're going to be able to see this inner search engine in a much clearer way. Like, the resolution will be higher, like a more focused way, because I just saw it. I just almost like experienced watching these thoughts like bombard me. They were like, what? You've never done that? You can't do that? Why would you be able to? Look at all the other people who are doing this. These podcasters are way better than you. They have so much more experience. They have a bigger following, and even some ridiculous thoughts like, you're Asian or something. Like, I don't know. Like, there was really like a thought that was like, it just hit me. Like, is an Asian woman going to be able to have this interview set up podcast where she records these Risk Every Days and talks by herself? Well, talks to, people like you guys on Facebook Live too, but would people really accept an Asian woman doing this podcast this way? Like, is she going to beat Tim Ferriss? I don't know. And then, I just was like, whoa, how crazy. And what our inner search engine does when this happens and we're not aware of it, is it has us continue down this path. It just like puts blinders on. And if my inner search engine is, why can't I do this? Why can't this occur? Why can't this happen? It will continue to bring up answers for that question. And it was just such a mind-blowing experience to realize how, and then because once I started down that path, my physical body started changing. Like I was walking and I had all these thoughts, and I felt tightness in my chest, and I started to slouch a little as I was walking. And I just thought, all of this because I just realized that we accomplished something cool, really freaking cool. So what I invite you guys to do is to be aware of this inner search engine, because I truly believe, and this is something I'm writing about in my book, which is that I think our lives are guided by our ability to, well, first they're guided by the questions that we ask, and our success is dictated upon the quality of questions that we ask. It's not even the answer that we come up with that is as important as the questions we ask. So as in the example of when I'm asking, like, why does my hurt, does my hip hurt because I think it's cancer or whatever it is, what does that occur? Or like, why can't I do something that is only going to create possibilities of can't? And it's the same as in relationships or whatever it is. It's like sometimes we ask ourselves, like, why is this person an asshole? Well, if our search engine is that way, we're just going to come up with reasons that they're an asshole. And actually, what I wanted to share too now, and to really just give a heartfelt, deep example of how this plays out in life. As I was writing my book, I was going through some of the blog posts that I've written, almost as a reminder that I can write, because I was feeling really backed up during this process. And I reread one of my favorite and one of the most well-received blog posts that I've ever written, and it was about the turning point in Andrew and Mai's relationship during the difficult time when we just didn't have a lot of hope. And so what I want to do is sort of go through that story again. And if you want to read it fully, I will have the link in the show notes. So to give you guys some background, if you're new to the podcast, which we have lots of new listeners, Andrew is my husband, and we got together when I was 19 and he was 22. And we got married in 2011. And shortly after we got married, we started to grow apart in a lot of different ways. And I think that it's sort of like normal when you're in your mid-20s and you're figuring out who you are. I mean, when we got together, I don't think we really knew who we were, right? And as we grow up, these things, we kind of get more set in our ways if we're not open or constantly growing and learning and working on ourselves. And about 3 years after we were married, we went through a really tough time, which you can hear also a little bit more about in episode 000 of this podcast, or the podcast named The Biggest Risk I Ever Took for Love. And we were healing, a space of healing after trying to heal after just a really difficult time where we were just at a head. And with nothing changing and us just kind of like going in this loop of just meeting at odds and having space between us, I think that he really made decisions that would force us to a break, and he really did. And this is sort of hard to like preface and explain in just a few minutes, but I hope that you can take my word for it that we are so both responsible for what happened in the path our relationship had gone through, like 3 years into our marriage, where we almost got a divorce. So, moving from there, during this time, I really wanted the marriage to work. Like, I was the one more like, I want us to stay together, and he was more like, I'm not really sure if this is going to work. And I was really heartbroken at the time, just fearful about so many things, my life without him, but also what it would mean about me if the marriage didn't work. Like, what would it say about me if my husband didn't love me enough to want to stay with me? And these were all things that were just churning inside me. And because it was painful to want to fight for somebody who maybe wouldn't want to be with me, there were lots of ways I was unconscious to that I was trying to protect myself. So while we were working on things, and he said, look, I'm trying, I want to work on things, my search engine was wired to why he doesn't love me. Because I thought unconsciously, or maybe some part of me was conscious to it, was that like, if I find out and figure out that he doesn't love me, or it's not going to work, or for sure it's not going to work first, then I can protect myself, and I can move on, and I will save myself from pain. So after one particularly rough time where we weren't really seeing eye to eye and just wasn't feeling good, I actually had an audition to go to in LA. We lived in Vegas at the time. And so I drove from Vegas to LA, and I was going to this audition to a job that I thought might be new and exciting. I think it was for being a reporter for the company that puts on EDC, or one of those music festivals. I think it was Insomniac or something, and I had just started getting into like all that kind of music. I thought it would be cool. So I was excited and on my way, and I turned up Beyonce the whole way, and I was like, doing like listening to Single Lady, like just singing to myself, you know what? Like, whatever, I'm so strong. I'm going to this job interview thing. Maybe like I don't need anybody. Maybe it's okay if this doesn't work out. And I was just kind of like in that energy. And I get there in LA, and okay, I admit I'm an Asian woman, and I am also not good at driving. I'm not saying that this is a stereotype for everyone, but it is for me. I struggle sometimes. So I'm driving, I get lost, and when I finally find my destination, I'm a little bit running short on time, and I'm looking to park. But parking in LA, for those of you guys who don't know, is a bitch. It's so hard. So I get there, and I'm looking for these pay spots, and I see this parking lot just across the street from where the audition is occurring, and it's $5, and it only takes cash. They only take cash, and I only have cards on me. And I look in my change drawer, which is in the car, on the left, one of those little like slots that you can just like open. It's got a little pocket that holds money or whatever it is, and there's nothing in it, maybe like a couple pennies. So I'm thinking, I need to go find a Wells Fargo or an ATM. And no, I actually only had my credit card. I didn't have my ATM card. So I was like, how am I going to get money? And I'm just freaking out. So I called Andrew, which is what I always do when I'm in a spot. And I called him, and I was like, I'm so frustrated. Like, I don't know what to do. What do? I can't find a spot. And like most times when we're triggered, it's not just about the parking. It's not just about the trigger. It's about everything else that's going on. And I was just so frustrated that like I couldn't figure, I'm sorry if that's loud. I couldn't figure this out by myself. And so I just was out of my mind on the phone. And at first he was very patient. He said, okay, well, how about this? Are you sure there's not, parking that will take credit cards? And I was just like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. And then finally, he just said, look, you can figure this out. I'm sure you can. And he hung up the phone. And I just sat there thinking to myself, so angry, how dare you? How dare you hang up the phone on me? You are so insensitive. Can't you see I'm freaking out here? When really, that anger was just layering over a sadness and a fear that I was experiencing, which is that, maybe I do need him. What if I do need him? What if I can't do this alone? And he's the person I always call. He's my person. He's the one who changes the oil in the car. He's the one who kills the mosquitoes in the house. You know what I mean? He opens my pickle jars. What am I going to do without this guy? And it was all happening. And, what I know now, of course, is that I would have been fine alone. I would have been able to do all those things. But it's not that I didn't want him to be the one that I spend my life with. And in that moment, I was just fearful, shit, man, do I need him? What is happening? And finally, I took some deep breaths and actually found that the place of the audition had its own parking that I didn't have to pay for. Go figure, right? So after that trip, I drove home, and once again, my inner search engine was why he doesn't love me. And over the next couple of days, it was more of the same. We just didn't connect, and we were just spinning our wheels, really. And after one particular fight, I stormed out of the house, and I was thinking to myself, this is it. No more. This is it. And I went to the car planning to go somewhere, and I sat in the car just thinking, what am I going to do? And as I was just crying and sitting in this hot car, I put my foot up on the left of the dash, or the left of the steering wheel. And as I went to turn the car on, I dropped my foot, and the change compartment popped open. The same one that I was looking for change just a few days prior. And in it were lots of quarters and a $20 bill. And I was like, what? At first I was confused. Where did I put that there? Where did it come from? And then I realized that Andrew had put that in there. He didn't tell me he put it in there, but I just knew it was an effort to save me from the next time I freaking was in a conundrum like that. And I just thought to myself, this feels like love. This feels like love. And I realized that in that moment that maybe he is showing me love, and over some more discoveries, I worked a lot on this with coaches and my own personal development, but I was just really untwisting my own inner search engine. What am I looking for? He's here, isn't he? He was still with me. He was still living in the same house, and doesn't that mean something? And as I shifted my search engine from he doesn't love me to he loves me, I looked for all the evidence. And I started to be really open to all the small ways. Like when we're in a group of people, a large group of people, or maybe I'm walking by some shop with glass valuables and he knows that I'm kind of like a bull in a china shop. He would put his hand near my back and kind of just guide me through. It was just something that I noticed that he did. Or when he takes care of the oil. Like I said, he always changes the oil, and he always puts gas in the car because he knows I don't like filling up the gas tank. And as I shifted that search engine, I saw more love. And because I saw more love, I was willing to give more love. And because I was willing to give more love, he was willing to give more love. And that was a giant, huge turning point that was not only just like necessary for our relationship to prosper and move forward, but it was freeing for me, because constantly looking for what was wrong or reasons why he didn't was torture. And I know that the journey is never over. Like, our brains continually look for things that are wrong or why something can't happen, because it's trying to keep us alive. It's better to be safe than sorry. Like back in the day when there were lions and tigers and cougars trying to eat us, it's always looking for what's wrong, right? Just to make sure, like just to keep us safe. And it's not about making that part of ourselves wrong either. Like that would just be like an ego. Anyway, that's a long thing to go into, but understanding that sometimes my default is to say, why can't I have a top 10 podcast and we together change the world with risk every day? Like what? Like, not to make myself wrong for thinking that, but just noticing, oh man, whoa, my inner search engine is doing that again. And having kindness with that discovery and say, okay, cool, except for now we're going to shift. Why is it possible? And how can I make that happen? And just to kind of like wrap this up in a bow about questions is like, be aware of the questions that you're asking. Are they opening up possibility, or are they closing them down? Are they putting people in boxes, or are they allowing for the world and people to surprise us? Like that's where the wonder of the world comes in. Like, oh man, wonder and awe, which, how beautiful is that? And so even with the question, what am I doing with my life? What the F am I doing with my life? What am I doing? What am I doing? It's such an open question, right? So beware of your questions. And once you are, continually ask ones that open up space and possibility. And you will experience the shift in your inner search engine and the breadth of which your search engine can reach. I don't know if I use the word breadth right, by the way. Anyway, I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like, the reaches and possibilities of the search engine will be bigger and open things up. So, that's what I have to share with you today. And I hope that this sort of new format works, because I like it. I think it's pretty cool, because some people like Erica Quintero, oh my gosh, thank you for joining here on the Facebook Live. And Katie, oh, you guys have been such supports of the podcast, and I love this. I can give you guys a shout out here on the podcast as well and FB Live. So once again, if you guys have any interest in joining, make sure you go to facebook.com/groups/WTF am I doing with my life. I would love to have you there. I think we're going to have some really interesting conversations there, maybe run some contests, some more risk everyday stuff. I'm really excited to just have this space where we can rap and be together. And as always, you can email the show, Kristy@KristyArnett.com. And if you have any coaching requests, you can now go to our Facebook group, and you can still email me as well. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter for inspiration and updates straight to your inbox, if that's how you prefer to communicate, you can go to KristyArnett.com and sign up for that. And you also get this really cool, I think it's really cool, this process for how to get moving and how to get unstuck whatever domain of your life you happen to be spinning your wheels, and to figure out what your next risk is. All right, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for being with me here today. And of course, please, please, please feel free to share with your friends. My mission is to make a difference with this podcast. And the more people, the better. Cool. All right.